All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is Crystal Jordan with From Crystal with Love XO, and I am excited to be coming to you guys with a little bit of a different format than we usually do. But this channel, I actually created this channel to have conversations specifically for women. And so today I'm really excited because this is just the type of conversation that I really want to have. Like, this is what this channel is all about. And you guys know a couple of days ago, I made a statement. I put out a video, just a really quick video, kind of responding to what we saw with the Iyanla Van Zant and Ebony K. Williams conversation. And so that really, I put up something that was like passion. It was passion driven. Obviously, based on my experience, you guys know I just have this new book out, Dear Alpha Female. It's not him, it's you. And a lot of what was said in the conversation the first time. And then of course, when can you guys hear me? Can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, put an XO in the chat. I want to make sure that people can hear. If you can hear me, put an XO in the chat. Because Tina Bree said, "What's the matter?" So I want to make sure that you guys can all hear me before I bring my guests on and before we really get into the meat of this conversation, because it's something really important. Thank you so much, Stacey, for that XO. I just wanted to make sure the sound was great. Thank you, the Coco Brown experience. No, I'm not crying. My eyes are watering. My eyes are just watering. I'm not crying. I think I have like an allergies are happening, but no, I'm not crying. Thank you so much for paying attention and being concerned for me. But no, I'm not crying. Thank you, Ruth Ann. Thank you, Trudy. So anyway, I put up this post about how I felt about the comments that Ebony K. Williams made. And again, I want to make sure that everybody understands I am not someone that was speaking out about her in a negative way, but I felt like the way she phrased it, especially when she doubled down on the Breakfast Club, I felt like it was just really dangerous and added to a very negative narrative that we have going in our community, right? And so a friend of mine and I were talking, and she sent me a post by an amazing sister. She also has a podcast, and I loved what she had to say, and it was kind of in contradiction of what I said. And so I believe that platforms are so we can all learn and listen and hear each other and all grow. And so I reached out to her. I said, I loved your post. And I asked her, would she be willing to come on so we could have a real conversation, the two of us. And of course, you guys, my chat. I love our chats because I love when you guys ask questions in real time so we can really get to the meat and just have good conversation. I believe iron sharpens iron, and this is the opportunity to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest. Her name is Asia Nicole. She is a social critic and political thinker from Inglewood, California. She studied African American studies and social sciences as an undergraduate at the University of California, Irvine, and now works in recruitment and retention for vulnerable patient populations in clinical trials. She's currently earning a master's degree in microbiology and intends to continue to focus on public health and health education from communities like the one she was born and raised. Please help me welcome Asia Nicole.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you just reached out to Olive Branch because I've been getting a lot of strong opinions, and you
Mhm.
were so kind to just open up the dialogue, and I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate you being open and excuse me, I just swallowed something the wrong way. But a good friend of mine sent me your post. And so I was like, I need to be following her because I love the fact that you explained it. And what I loved about your post, even though it was like I said, a little bit in contradiction to what I said, is that you were speaking from love and concern, right? And it wasn't coming from a place of hate and vitriol. It's like, okay, there's another side to this conversation that we're not looking at. And so, with that being said, would you be open to read? You have your post pulled up. I have it on my phone. I can read it, or you could read it.
You know what? I'm curious to hear how you read it. Will you read it? Because I want to hear what you heard as
Okay.
you read it.
Okay, we're gonna all listen together. The chat, and you guys definitely make sure that you are chiming in, because I feel like, one of the things I like about this platform is that my listeners, they actually like in real time are commenting, and we can have, real full conversation. So this is a good friend of mine sent this to me. She didn't respond and let me know that she didn't agree with my post, but she sent me this, so I think that she agreed with yours. So this is Asia's post. She says, "Don't cancel me, but I feel like someone should say how difficult it is to build romantic relationships across huge income or rather class differences. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's difficult, and relationships, period, are hard as well. Men don't want to be wanted for their money, and women don't want to have to pretend men are running the household when she pays half the bills and does 99.9% of the domestic labor while he sits there proud of taking out the trash or changing the light bulb. So a saying came to mind to help describe the situation. A bird may love a fish, but where would they live? That was powerful. um, when people were upset with Ebony K. Williams for saying she wouldn't date a bus driver, I decided to look up some details about her background and lifestyle. And I have to say, how would she even meet a bus driver when she likely has a driver? How would she meet a bus driver while she was completing undergrad and graduate school? How would she meet a bus driver when they're not attending the same social events? How would she meet a bus driver when they're not living in the same neighborhood? How would they share their lives when they're living different lifestyles? Now, if you want to critique capitalism, classism, and other systemic issues, I'll mind my business. But what I don't like is starting and ending your concern with black women's dating choices. We just live in the world. We didn't make it, and we don't decide how it spins. Drop
And
the mic.
I'm just glad that you received it in the spirit that it was given, because I
Yeah,
didn't know how people were going to take that, because
right.
I know that there are so many people out right now loving bus drivers,
Yeah,
loving service workers, loving blue collar men. And they're like, I met him at Subway, I met him in all these other places. But you have to understand, some of us are living these lifestyles that really keep us in our silos.
yeah.
And we not having this kind of access to all of these people the way you might imagine. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about these real boundaries that even when we meet, staying connected is difficult.
Right. I think, it's funny because I'm going to be just very transparent with my experience. The girlfriend that sent me your post is a Spelman grad. And we've had this conversation many times before. She and I are very good friends. And although we have similar careers, both of us have been on our own public relations agencies in Atlanta. So we are, driven women, professional women, definitely. Um, we're successful in the right. We've worked hard, college graduates, successful in the right. And so I told her I got married early, right? And so I had was married with two children. So when we met each other in our 30s, I actually was divorced with two children, and she was not, because she was one of the ones that kind of stayed on that career path and decided to have children and marry later. Consequently, dating in our 30s for us was very different. Although we were in the same circles, people looking at me as a divorced mother of two, I was judged harshly by a lot of guys that were very career driven, right? It might have been in the circles that we were in. So I found some of the guys in my circle. There are numerous issues of why I ended up not necessarily dating within my circle. I did, but I didn't find love within that circle. But I told
Mhm.
her I had a very different experience being a career woman but being divorced and having two children than she did being a single woman with no children and not divorced. And so I that conversation allowed both of us to see that we both probably had different experiences, although we're in the same social circle, we're probably around the same financial status, but we've just had different experiences because of our background. Um, so I just want to say, have you? And I think that everybody has that. I think that was a great
Yeah.
example. She and I are two people that work together, collaborate, but because of something that happened to us early on, there's a difference in the way we're received. So I think that it's really hard. What bothered me about Ebony's statements, Asia, is the fact that they were very general, right?
Mhm.
And when she said, her mouth kind of turned down at bus driver and said, unless he owns the bus. I think that, and I understand, but I think that when you say that on a very public, huge platform, there's the opportunity for people to assume that that is the only thing that is important when when considering what makes a complementary mate. Does that make sense?
It does. And my whole pushback is that there are so many intersections making it difficult for us to love who we would want to love. It's not just income.
Mhm,
Okay. It's
mhm,
not just education. It's not just being a divorcee or being a single mom. We are
mhm.
trying to find love across many intersections and we're struggling and we don't talk honestly about it.
Right.
And we get the pushback, we hear the negativity, we push back in response to the negativity, but we're
Mhm,
not pushing back in response to the social, political, and economic systems that
mhm.
are causing these things.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because I know that bus drivers are integral because I used to take the bus back and forth up Crenshaw to
Mhm,
where I needed to get to, right? So
mhm.
I'm not telling anybody that bus drivers are not essential, but what I'm saying is, do I want to partner and raise my children with a bus driver?
Right.
That is what Ebony was saying. She's like,
Mhm,
I'm thinking about my future, my children's future. I really want to set them up in life to be able to achieve any and everything that they could want. And
mhm.
when DJ Envy was sitting across from Ebony, very upset, very worked up. Did you see that
I
breakfast?
I did, and that's why I lashed out again. That's why I had the second response
But
because
did you know that DJ Envy will not send his child to a public school? Did you know he said that?
I mean, yes, but also I think DJ Envy is married to a woman that accepted him when he wasn't at the height of his career. And I think
Sure.
right.
And I just want to point out how commonplace it is for women to pick up men where they might be, right? But the
Mhm,
attitude that is permeating through our community about taking women as you might find them, divorcee, single mom, et cetera, et cetera. So
mhm.
this attitude we have about taking and receiving people as they come and loving them regardless, the narrative is different if you're talking about men and when you're talking about women. And so I just want to say that these fractures that we have, these ideas we have about who deserves love regardless and what unconditional love needs to look like, it's conditional. It's very conditional. And I don't think we're being honest about the ways that it's conditional.
Well, I mean, we're not. It's not like we have our opinions are totally opposite, right? There's a lot that I agree with that you're saying, but I also think that there is, you know, I'm a woman in my mid 40s. Most of my friends are in the same age group as I am, right? And at this point, a lot of us found ourselves single and looking for someone that we could relate to, that we could, you know, build a life with. I think when you're in your 30s, you're just going, you're working, you're excited about your career, and a lot of times we're not thinking about the fact that our biological clocks are ticking. You know, things are changing. For us is very different from men. Robert De Niro is 79 years old and just had a baby. We
Yes.
know that women, we don't have that same opportunity. And so what I've experienced is I didn't have that situation because I had children early, but a lot of my girlfriends at this at 41, 42, start looking around like, wait a minute, I want to get married. I want to have a family. And at that point, things are different. And so at that point, you have to have a real conversation. When I get married, when I have children, what is most important to me? And I feel like the idea of classism and finances should not be, in my opinion, the number one thing that dictates who you find, who you're able to build a family with. I looked up the statistics here in Atlanta. Our MARTA bus driver earns 65,000 a year, right?
Before taxes.
Before, no, no, absolutely. But I would also say, because Ebony mentioned entrepreneurship, right? And Atlanta is a city that is entrepreneurship is pushed harshly, right? I know a lot of entrepreneurs that don't have health insurance packages, that don't have, you know, savings. They don't have the end figured out. They're doing great, they're making money, but they don't have a benefits package, you know, for a wife. Actually, when I got married the first time, I was married to my husband worked for AT&T. He was an electrical engineer. He earned a great salary, and he also had a great benefits package, and that allowed me to be an entrepreneur. So when I got divorced, I had to figure that part out, right? And I was like, wow, this really worked for us because I was an entrepreneur and he had the job that provided our family with insurance and benefits and things like that. Um, I think that for me, not everybody idolizes money. I know a lot of us do, especially in our African American community. A lot of us feel like success is defined specifically by money. But I would suggest that the older you get, you start to realize that that's not the sum total of success. And because I know a lot of very, very wealthy people that still get divorced and still end up, in the same situation. So I'm just suggesting, Asia, that perhaps if you met that bus driver that made 65,000 a year but had great benefits, and maybe he'd been to college. That's not, I don't even understand how we assume that bus drivers haven't been to college. There are a lot of college graduates that can't find upper level or white collar jobs, especially right now. So I just think putting all this on a particular position or job title is really irresponsible, because you don't know anything about that person. Just because he's a bus driver does not mean that he doesn't enjoy reading, that he's not cultured, that he doesn't enjoy traveling. That's really unfair to assume that just because earning 6 or 7 figures is not his priority, that he doesn't have anything else to offer.
No, I agree with you 100%. We are not our jobs, okay? And we all intend to retire someday. We don't intend to work forever, I hope.
Right.
We're not working forever. So you and me are on the same page in that regard. However, our work can afford certain lifestyles. In the current career that I'm in, I travel a lot to different clinical sites to monitor clinical trials. And so that affords me the opportunity to rack up a lot of frequent flyer miles in the airport quite frequently.
Right.
And being in the airports, you get to meet a lot of people, you get to see a lot of people, but that's people who fly.
Right.
Okay? And so that's already me being in a silo. That's already me being restricted in my access to who I'm meeting now that I'm single and looking and thinking. And the clock, you're right, the clock is ticking, my dear. I smell one more newborn baby. Child. It's very real. You know, I want to be a mom one day too. And I am evaluating the men that come my way in a plethora of criteria, not just how much he earns, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. The guy I'm dating right now, we had a conversation. I asked him quite directly, what do you think is the amount of money that you need to earn annually to live comfortably?
Yeah.
And he did not give me the right answer. But one thing we did agree on is that more money is better. More money.
What did he say? Can you share with us what number he gave?
As opposed I don't want to do him like that, y'all.
Okay, you guys are still dating. Okay, it's funny because Kevin Samuels would have this conversation all the time, right? And people would get very upset with him. And he would, women would come on and they would say, even now I watch Kendra G's show, her Singled Out show. Women come on and they say, I want a man that earns at least, 150,000, or sometimes it's like 400,000. And I'm just like, I don't.
But you know what you earn, and you know who you'd like to be, and that gives you a gauge. So I used my gauge and I told him, well, I think it needs to look more like this.
Okay.
And he said, well, more money doesn't hurt. So we're not on the same page. I didn't break up with him in that moment. I said, we're not on the same page. That's what I said. Now, I know that I'm not going to change. My ambition is not going to change.
Right.
I'm going to continue to go for what I can go for. And I think I can do more than what I'm doing. I've lived very well, but I intend to do better. So he has to be with me on the same page about that.
Right.
So not what she was alluding to, and what she later explained, Miss Ebony K. Williams, what she later alluded to was the ambition, the drive, the focus, the intent on getting somewhere else. And that is the part that she also named explicitly. And I hope that we can hear that as well. Now, she didn't give us the example of the bus driver. That was Auntie Iyanla. Auntie Iyanla said, would you date a bus driver? And her response was, does he own the bus? Now, he can be in the industry, but where he needs to be, what level he needs to be at, is at a level where he can determine and expand his money-making capacity at his whim, at his desire. When you are paid a wage, you're going to get the wage that you can demand and command. And because the position of bus driver has a skill set that's widely open to many, many people, the wage you can demand is depressed, because the demand for that labor, that work, is mitigated by the number of people who can do what you do. So me becoming more specialized and more focused in my career has enabled me to demand a much higher salary. So she's naming, can you demand more for your labor? Can you require more for an hour's work? than the time it's going to take you to actually put into that. Can you delegate? Can you give these responsibilities and these day-to-day tasks to other people so you can spend more time with me and with your children and focused on your household? I think these things are valid concerns to have. I don't want to be with somebody who has to work overtime to make the bare minimum. I don't want that. I want leisure time. I want vacation time. I want sit on the couch and cuddle time. I want rub my feet time. And
Yeah.
if you don't have that, then I don't know if you're going to be the right partner for me, because those are the things that I want. And I think that Ebony is well within her right to assess herself, assess the life that she wants and the partner she wants, and say, you know what, bus driver, I mean, that sounds like somebody who work a lot of overtime. That sounds like somebody who work a 9 to 5. That sounds like somebody who don't got freedom and they schedule to pick up and go with me when I want to go. And
Right.
so that's what I heard her saying. But I
Right.
also hear this other thing you're naming, which is you are more than your job. Don't devalue somebody because of the work they do, especially when it's critical work. And let me say this last thing. I spent the early part of my career working in the hospital, drawing blood, working in the laboratory. And do you know that no care can happen if the environmental team doesn't come and clean the room? No care can happen without environmental services.
Mhm.
So I come from a background and from an experience where I know people who do what's considered the most menial, low skilled labor is the most essential. And without them, no surgery can happen in a dirty OR, an
Right.
unsanitized OR. So we know how essential these people are, but does our economic system pay them to commiserate with how valuable what they do is? No. And so it's not an Ebony K. Williams problem that she doesn't want to date the man who's on environmental services. She didn't do it. She didn't create the problem. But there
Right.
is a problem with our economic system that forces us and compels us to choose people based on how their labor is valued. And that's wrong. That's unethical. And I'm outraged about that. I'm more mad about that than I am at Ebony K. Williams saying she prefers not to date a bus driver.
I hear you, my sister. I love the way you think. I hear what you're saying. I think that, I guess for me, I hear that conversation, and like I said, this is something that I talk about with my girlfriends all the time. I wonder, in our communities at this point, with so many Black women being in leadership roles and being the biggest number of small business startups and achieving so much, have we decided that we would rather be alone than be with someone that has not earned what we have in terms of finances? Because it sounds like that's what a lot of us are saying. And if that's the case, it's fine. With Ebony, I saw in an interview where she did on The View, and she mentioned that she was going to get she was considering freezing her eggs and then having a baby on her own because she's not married. And then she also wants to date. And it just, I guess I'm not even going to say sad, because we all have the right to pick the situation that we want, right? If I have girlfriends that say, if I can't be with a man that can give me a life of luxury, I will stay single. And I say, sis, that is your right to do, because no one has to you have to deal with yourself. The choices that Crystal makes will affect Crystal. The choices that Asia makes will affect Asia. And if you decide that a person earning a certain amount of money is what's going to make you ultimately happy in a relationship, and if you don't get that, you would rather remain single, that's totally on you. But I just wonder if women that feel like that will still feel like that in their 60s and 70s. And I'm not saying that you can't find that man, but there is just no guarantee that that is the ultimate thing that's going to make you happy. And I don't hear a lot of women speaking to anything other than this lifestyle that they want, that really, in my humble opinion, seems a little unrealistic, because I know a lot of men that earn at a high level. They don't have time. I don't know about all this extra cuddle time that you speak of. I have a friend that makes around $3 million a year. His wife is very well taken care of. She has the lifestyle that you probably would like to live, that a lot of other ladies on this chat would like to live. He is never home. He's never home. And she also shares him with other women. So for me, I chose not to have that type of lifestyle, because I think that a lot of times it sounds good to say men that have a lot of money have a lot of time, but I've just never seen that be the case. I've seen men that have a lot of money and have a lot of power are usually very, very passionate and involved with their jobs. Not a bad thing. I admire that. But I don't believe this idea that he's going to have cuddle and rub my feet time. He may be like, you know what? I'll send you to the spa and I'll see you. I'll fly you out here and I'll see you when you get there. So I think it's really, in my opinion, it comes down to what is important to you. And if you decide that a certain lifestyle dictated by the salary is going to make you happy, then I do feel like you have to be willing to say, well, if that doesn't happen, am I going to be okay with it? And I think a lot of women are. And if so, that's go off, sis. But I just think that's sad considering, like you said, I mean, there are so many amazing people. And I thought for me, the basis of a relationship was love. So I'm not saying I want to be with someone that is not ambitious, but I want to be with someone that loves me, that cares for me, that comforts me. Money goes up and down. People lose their jobs, companies fold, the economy dips and dives. I'm afraid that women that are solely focused on, I got to have the man with the big check, are going to be disappointed when that check is not there to wipe their tears when their mother passes, when they go through some type of illness. We're all going to go through things in life that are not pretty and that are not fixed by money. And I just feel like now that we're becoming successful, we're so focused on that. There's no room for anything else outside of how much do you make and what does it look like next to my check.
I love everything you said. You know, my network of women, like you said, you knew a woman who dated this man. I never needed to date a man who I never seriously dated a man who was a seven-figure earner. I dated them. I let them take me out and drive me around in a Mercedes-Benz concept car because, you know, what young woman wouldn't want to ride in that car? But the reality of the situation is I knew what the game was. What's up? You know, I enjoyed their time. I enjoyed their attention, but I didn't marry those men. I didn't
Yeah.
commit to those men. And I think that you know, I have that awareness because I have sisters, I have girlfriends, I have a network, I have a community of women who are informing me about what's on the other side of that Maybach, what's on the other side of that yacht, what's on the other side of that trip to Paris, France. You know, there is not all everything that glitters is not gold. Okay. And so we know that. But I hear what you're saying, that there are maybe a younger generation of women who are new to this,
Mm-hmm.
whereas we true to this and we've been through this,
Right.
where we know what the game is, but they don't. And
Yeah.
so I would say the problem is that these men are always going to use their resources and their wealth and the flashy to get the attention of these women. They're always going to use that. But do those young women have us? Do they have your platform? Do they have your book so that they can sit down and say, I know what you're thinking. That looks great, but know what's on the other side of that and know that a man who's taking care of you, that is not security, right? You need to have your own account. You need to have your own assets. And if you don't, you are a prisoner, because
Right.
try to get up and leave and see what happened. Try to see where you're going to be if you want to get up and leave. So there's another platform. She called it Vex Money. Have your Vex Money on deck. So you got it and you can get up and go. My mama taught me that. So if y'all don't got your mama, if you don't got this platform, then those are the people that I'm really concerned about. But I feel like by and large, we know what's up with that. We're not looking for these men who are married to their jobs. We're looking for a man who makes a good, comfortable living, so that if I, as a Black woman with my high maternal and infant mortality, you need to be able to take care of me and baby. That is my bottom line. And so when I'm sitting down and I'm talking to men about marriage and children, yes, you do need to make a certain income so that I'm not worried about that. I want no worries, minimal worries.
Right.
And I don't want, you know, I'm not expecting to live out here in River Oaks. I'm out here in Houston. I don't expect to live in River Oaks. We can live, you know, up north in North Houston. You know, we can live in the burbs. You know, I feel like people do have reasonable standards and expectations. Is living in north of Houston realistic for Ebony K. Williams? No. Baby girl is a millionaire many times. Okay. So her expectation to have that man who makes a similar salary to her is perfectly reasonable.
Right.
She has committed no foul to anybody by saying he's got to make what I make. Okay. So I think we got to be careful who we're talking to and who we're talking about, because she's being perfectly reasonable saying, I want a man whose salary commiserates with mine.
Yeah. I want to just say that I'm not, to Ruth's comment, I'm not suggesting that all men that are wealthy are not, do not have morals. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm not trying to generalize. I think conversations get convoluted when people are thinking if you make a statement, that means you're talking about everybody. What I am saying is that when you as a woman decide what is important to you, and I'm just speaking on behalf of women right now because I'm a woman, and so I can't really speak to men and what they're looking for. Um, but as a woman, when you decide what's important to you, if you're leading with finances, I think that, in my opinion, could be an issue because I feel like finances, as you said, can come and go. My mother taught me you look for a man with ambition because ambition does not die. Finances, clout, status, that can all go. That can come and go, you know? And so I hear it and I feel like honestly the majority of my successful black sisters that I am so proud to be around and be in the company of really do feel like they would rather be alone than be with someone that does not have that much money. And I guess for me, maybe I'm a hopeless romantic. That makes me sad because I feel like we know the numbers are not necessarily equal, especially at this point with black women doing so much. I believe we always can break statistics. So what's for you is for you. If you want this man, I believe you can get it. But we do have to be realistic and know that there are not as many black men on certain levels as there are black women. So if you are resigned to saying this has to be this way and I'll wait, then we know that we're waiting longer. And I'm not saying anyone should sacrifice. I just think, like I said, for me, it makes me sad that that is what is that is what is in our heads forthright, as opposed to really caring about the character and a man that would love you and would really want to. I mean, I feel like if a man is inspired and in love, he can stretch further and do more things. There's
But
so many examples. DJ Envy, Denzel Washington was a trash.
can I ask you, why is it that you think that a focus, a consideration, a focus, maybe even on income means that we're not also thinking about, is he loving? Is he devoted? Is he good in his community? Is
Mhm.
because in my experience, I don't think that these things don't matter. I think
Don't
sometimes,
hear them. That's not what we're talking. That doesn't come into the conversation. So
okay,
that's what I'm speaking of what is discussed.
okay.
Um, I think KF. There was another person said that millennials and Gen Zers are wanting a man to be equally on their level. That's not the women that I see. The young women that I see want a man that makes a lot of money. That's what they want. They're not even necessarily looking for love. They just want a man that has money because they want to be able to look a certain way. Relationship goals. We're on the yacht.
Can I ask, are they coming from poverty? Because look, you might be hearing from people who are coming from a dire situation.
Mhm.
And what we have the luxury to be focused on is very different.
Right.
I don't have to date a man based on his salary because I make more than enough, but not all of us do. So I
Right.
wouldn't look at the woman who doesn't make what I make and say, sis, you worried about money too much. You needed to be thinking about, is he gonna love you and love your kids? Maybe she is in such dire financial straits coming out of systemic poverty, abject poverty, right? And
Mhm.
she hasn't had the ability to move and do, and she's looking for a way out. She's looking for an immediate solution to a dire problem. And
Well,
so
I would tell her she would need to work on herself and not look to a man to solve those financial
and
problems.
I would agree with you because that is no success story. That is no security blanket. I would
Right.
caution her, but I would also keep my mouth closed and drink my water because for some of us, that is the best that we can do. And that is a terrible reality. It's terrible, but I don't think we're doing anybody any favors pretending that it's not. I think that if we're upset that people are out here having to choose their partners, who they love, who they're with because of money, I don't know that being mad at these people is where we should be. I think if we don't think it's right that people don't have their basic human needs taken care of,
Mhm.
housing, food, healthcare, education. They don't have these. We're not mad at these people. We should make sure that as a society, we're providing these things for people. And
Mhm.
when we're not, we have to expect a society where people are choosing who to love based on who can provide their basic human needs.
Well, I want to, again, I just can't. The publicist in me is just like, no one is saying we're mad at anyone. I
Oh,
feel like everyone,
of course.
come on, I think everybody should, at the end of the day, we all, like I said, we're all responsible for our own choices. But I do believe that conversations like these are necessary, because if you came into this conversation thinking, I need a man that makes seven figures, and you believe that, I'm fine with that. I just think that we need to have the conversation, because there's a lot more to it than just saying I want a man with money. Because if that was not the case, then we wouldn't see divorces happening with people that are very, very wealthy, just like we see them happening with people that are not wealthy. And I do think that there is danger. I work in the entertainment industry, so I see firsthand all the things that are shiny that a lot of young women are aspiring to have and aspiring to be. um, they are not going to give them the results that they believe. And so I feel like that's why I want to have these type of conversations. But I'm definitely not upset with anybody or mad at anybody. Like I said, even Ebony has the right to do what she wants to do. I do feel like when we suggest, my issue with her conversation was when she talked about Black men being coddled, and them coming home with C's and D's, and their mothers, coddling them and being okay with them and accepting mediocrity. I felt like that was very unfair, because I don't feel like that's the case in every situation. Of course, there are situations like that, but those households where the boys are getting C's and D's, the girls probably could get C's and D's as well. There are a lot of parents that are not parenting. But I do know from working in the school system that there is a disadvantage that African American boys have, or boys of color, period, have, specifically African American boys. And so to suggest that they're getting C's and D's and settling for mediocrity and we're okay with that, I just felt like that was a very irresponsible statement. Considering we know all this information, the school to prison pipeline, Black boys are targeted. There aren't enough Black teachers in the classroom, and then Black male teachers. Black boys some learn differently.
Absolutely.
That's not my issue. My children both were on the honor roll the entire time they were in school, but I'm not, just because I have bypassed something doesn't mean I would turn my nose up if someone who doesn't, and speak ill of that, because I feel like that's a problem. So even for myself, I don't, I definitely wanted a man that was of a certain amount of means, but I just feel like the idea of us feeling like you don't have value as a man to me unless you earn this amount of money is a dangerous way to think. Because on the flip side of that, when men say you are not of value to me unless you are fit the standard of beauty that I want, and you're young, we don't like that. As women, we don't like being judged by our external, right? So for us to say, well, I'm going to judge you by what's in your pocket, and then him to say, well, I'm going to judge you by what you look like, we're going to have that's a very, very superficial way of doing it on both sides. And I think women, we have to acknowledge it, and men need to acknowledge it as well. I can't speak for men, but I do feel like men are very judgmental, not on money, but on youth and beauty. And so
I agree with you, because when my tax bracket changed, honey, y'all don't think men are gold diggers, and I want y'all to stop.
they are.
I want y'all to stop that, because the way these men want to know what I make, and they can't wait to get to see my apartment, and they can, y'all, they want to know too about the income that you're bringing in. And I have known too many women who feel like they've made the mistake of dating a man who didn't have the means, and wound up buying cars to get them back and forth to work, and maybe making some child support payments to keep them out of jail so they can keep their license, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've definitely seen women who lost out a lot because they found themselves loving and accepting men who were not able to partner with them financially, as well as romantically, as well as every other way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a rock and a hard place. That was the point of my post. There are no right answers out here. Okay. There is a lot of confusion and a lot of challenges, and a lot of people are struggling. And I don't want to gaslight anybody about their challenges.
Yeah.
If you come to me and you say, girl, I loved him, he was down and out, I loved his stinking draws, and now he done left me, now that he done got the job and he done got the career and he done made the money. What was her name on Waiting to Exhale? He left her for that woman.
Yeah, Bernadine. Bernadine.
Bernadine.
He did.
Yes. And
He
so
did.
I'm saying that there are women who have loved men through the hardship
I
and
agree.
all of that, and they got burned. So
I
what
agree. I agree. But let me just ask you this, and I agree with you that there's no right answers, but I think there's a very big difference between a man that's making 65 to 80,000 a year and just may not be on your level, but he's earning a living, taking care of himself, paying his own child support if he has it to pay, paying his own bills, and a man that is asking a woman to buy him a car or to drive her car to work. Like there's a difference, and I feel like we're lumping all these men in and saying a man that earns a wage honestly, and he may not just be at six figures. He is the same as a man that is just freeloading or a homosexual. I think those are two very different things, and consequently, I know women. A friend, a Kojo on Little Black Books had this saying, and I will never forget it. He said, "Only dogs like to jump high fences." So when
mm,
people build these big fences around themselves, of course, men that are looking at you and trying to be a gold digger, those men aren't worth anything, and we know that. We're not even including them because they don't. They're not someone that's trying to be with you and actually build a family. I'm talking about the men that are seriously interested, want to build a family, but he just may not be quite at six figures. He's working, he is not being a freeloader. He's not being irresponsible. I know a lot of men that work for the gas company, the electric company that retire and are millionaires because they're very smart with their money. They're not flashy. They're not, and they're retired. And I ride horses, so they've got land and all kinds of stuff. You cannot judge somebody because of what they're doing. Sometimes a man that makes 250,000 may have less actual money than a man that makes 80 because he's spending trying to impress other men. I just think we have to be careful about that. You cannot lump the freeloader that's trying to take advantage of you with the man who is a hard worker and just he may not have his PhD. He may not even have his bachelor's degree, but he's a hard worker. Those are two very different things.
I don't disagree with you. I think that evaluating people as they come is something that you must do, or else you run the risk of missing out on some incredible people.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that there are social, systemic, political factors at play, and Black women in particular are at the bottom of two of them.
Yeah.
And the way we have to evaluate our risk cost benefit analysis
Mm-hmm.
is a little bit different. And so you may hear a lot of Black women saying, look, if he cannot dramatically improve my situation, it is not worth the risk of ending up being one of these femicide statistics. And it's not worth the risk of me ending up being one of these maternal mortality statistics. And it's not worth the risk. And these are the decisions that Black women are having to make. And
Right.
I empathize with them. I say, oh my God, sis, what you must be dealing with, what you must be going through, where you have to make decisions about whether or not to be partnered and whether or not you're going to be risking your life
Mm-hmm.
in doing it. That's mind blowing what Black women are dealing with. And I don't know how often we really sit back and really feel for Black women. Like, sis, you are between a rock and a hard place. It is not easy out here. They're going to talk about you bad if you're a single mom. They're not going to help you once you in that relationship and you don't do nothing. You single in a marriage. No, nobody come and help you and rescue you because you got a man, right? Even though he's not helping you and he's not doing nothing. So it's just a rock and a hard place. And so I would like to have these conversations with a lot more empathy. I want to say what's true first. Sis, you ain't even got to tell me. I know that being married don't mean what people like to pretend that it means.
Right.
And I know that being with a man of means don't mean he necessarily give you the means, because financial abuse is real. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't always sit and talk about financial abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just a lot of moving pieces to this. And I agree with you. Oversimplifications and painting things with broad strokes happens a lot because people want to feel heard. They want to make their point quickly, because we live in the world of sound bites, Miss PR. We live in a world where people want the short and sweet and they don't want the complexity. So platforms like this, projects like your book, where we're talking at length about these difficulties, these hardships, I think that's the way to go. And hopefully we'll get mad enough at systems, we'll get mad enough at institutions, we'll get mad enough at policies, and we'll get out here and try to change some of those so we can more of the people we want to love under the
Mhm.
conditions in which we want to love them.
Right. No, I agree with that. I think that I would like to see us fight the systems more than we fight each other. Right. And so I think, I can say that something might not be my preference without speaking ill of it. Right. And I think that's what we have to do. I think both sides need to learn to speak in love, because we don't need our conversations with our community are constantly aired out on social media and on public platforms. We don't see other cultures or other races having these specific type of conversations. They're necessary, right? But I think that we just, especially when you have a platform, and I don't have, my platform is very small, and I appreciate all the people that are here, but someone like Ebony K. Williams or Iyanla Vanzant, even yours, there are bigger platforms, and when you have, to whom much is given, much is expected. So when you have a bigger platform and people are listening, and there's people that are they're looking for information, they're looking for leadership, you just have to be very, very careful about how you present things. And so I feel like we just have to be more mindful of what is our personal preference and what we're speaking about in a public space. Women have a lot of preferences. Just because something doesn't work for you doesn't mean it won't work for your sister. So bashing a person based on what they make or how tall they are, or there's all types of things. If they don't have a passport, I mean, it's so many things that we look at to try to, well, you're not good enough for me if you don't have a passport. Okay, well, I mean, maybe he can get a passport. Maybe not. I just feel like we have so many things that we're looking for to say you're not good enough. And I want us to realize that the family is the core of our community. And unless we start to show each other as Black men and Black women more kindness and more acceptance, our community is never going to unify. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. It really is about being kinder to those. It doesn't, if you don't want to do what you want, do what you want. But when you speak ill about people and throw rocks, it affects the social narrative that we have going on. We don't need any more of that. We don't need any more of that. If a man is driving a bus, you don't know what that man may be doing. Maybe he's working and going to school at night. You don't know where people are based on where you meet them. And so, and women either. If she's, a woman could have a really bitchy attitude. And she goes through something and she realizes, wait a minute, I'm being, and then later people change, we're all evolving. So assuming that someone is not good enough for you based on where you meet them could come back to haunt you if you're not looking for things deeper. That's really my only point. But at the end of the day, like I said, everyone should do what they want to do. But you also have to be realistic about the outcome. And we have to be realistic about what we're dealing with in our community.
Absolutely. And I just want to tell you, this same gentleman, I passed on him initially. We met for the first time about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you're not for me. He's from here in Texas, rural Texas,
Mm-hmm.
accent and everything. I said, child, I can't bring you to Inglewood. I'll bring you back home.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? He was persistent. Yeah. And he's a beautiful person. I enjoy him so much. Kind, generous, loving, sweet. Girl, rubbed my feet the other day.
That's what you were talking about, the foot rub.
I brought that up and I said, you keep this up. I'll give you a child. Better. So I'm just saying that, yes, we live, we learn, we grow. We have opportunities to see how wrong we were. Yeah. And I really thank him for giving me the opportunity to see how wrong I was. But we don't always get that. And right. Ebony K. Williams got to think about that. She has said this on a really large platform. Mm-hmm. And anybody who might have been interested in might have heard her speak this way. And then like, my brother's a bus driver. I can't bring her to the family. She can't come with me nowhere. Like that. So it's true, the way we say things matters. The impact it has matters. And I think there was a better way to say what she said for sure.
Yeah.
I totally got her sentiment. I totally had compassion for where she was coming from. And that's why I wrote my post.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I loved your post. It was written It was very well written for me to reach out to you. It was it touched me. And KFS, I agree. Women should keep their standards. I just want us to make sure that our standards are based in, substance, that are going to really give us the relationship that we want. If the relationship that you want is purely financial, then focus on that. But if the relationship that you want is someone that you can enjoy life with, focus on that. You have to be realistic about what those standards are going to bring you. So I definitely don't think anyone should lower their standards. But I think as I went through my experience with Iyanla, taught me to reevaluate my standards, and I have a penchant for East Coast guys that are dark skinned with muscles.
Oh, girl.
It's not what God sent me. My husband is biracial, no chocolate, it was white chocolate of that, and from South Carolina. But he is the most amazing man. And it's not about, so what I was looking for, I got that I had been looking for, and that was not right for me. So I had to learn, because for a long time I was like, oh no, he has to be this, and this. And Iyanla was able to share with me as an elder speaking to a younger woman, maybe you are looking in the wrong direction for things, and you're not looking for what's important. And so I made some adjustments and ended up with something different that was so much better for me. And so my heart is just to share that with other women, because when I look around at my friend group and I see so many that are beautiful and talented just like yourself, we all deserve love. We deserve someone supporting us, that can pour into us outside of work. So many of us, our work is who we are. Work defines us. And having someone that loves you and that just sit down and rub your feet and make you feel beautiful, it balances you out. Yeah, you can be that amazing career girl, but there's nothing that beats that. And I don't want my sisters to miss out on that. You know,
Mm,
that's where my heart is coming from. And that's what I want to have these conversations. I know women get very angry. You tell them maybe the money shouldn't be the most important thing, but I just know that, you know, when my great aunt goes into the hospital, my husband's check doesn't have anything to do with how he comforts me, you know?
mm. Oh,
So,
that's real. Yes.
so
Yes.
that is it. But I thank you so much, Asia. You are beautiful. You are brilliant. I love your perspective. I agree with everything that you're saying. And I know that you are going to have an amazing love story. You could be in one now. And he may decide, because of you and how much of a visionary you are, he may change and become a different man. I mean, let's look at Mr. Denzel Washington. Look at him being a trash can. He worked for the sanitation system, and now he's probably one of the best actors of our time. Like, where we meet people and what we add to them, we never know where that could end up. So just pray and be open, and ask for perception and discernment, and just be open to amazing love. That's my gift to you. I just really want all of us to be open to that. And it can come with the lifestyle that we want, but it also should come with a love that feeds our soul.
That makes me think of when India.Arie said, "I am ready for love."
Yes.
Yes, and I just want to welcome it with arms wide open, ready to receive it.
Yeah.
No boundaries on what it has to look like, how it has to be, just open, knowing
Yes.
what I want, knowing who I am. That's
Mhm.
enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. We didn't know each other, but you agreed, and you were so gracious, and I thank you for that. Like I said, I just met you today, but you're admirable, beautiful, brilliant sister, and I appreciate you spending time to come on my platform and share your heart.
Thank you so, so much for having me. Thank you, everybody who tuned in.
All right. Well, thank you, Asia.
All right, good night.
All right. Bye bye. All right. Thank you all for joining me tonight. It was a beautiful conversation. I saw all the comments. We just were enthralled in the discussion, but I hope that you guys actually were able to really see where I was coming from. It really wasn't anything against Ebony K. Williams. I mean, she was an accomplished woman and doing her thing, but I also wanted to say there's another side to this. And like I said with Asia, my intent is really just to show another side and make sure that we're open for something that brings us balance. And it can be everything that you want. just make sure that you're focused on the right things. But I thank you guys so much. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Share this conversation with someone that may need to hear it. Regardless of where you fall on the scale or on the tangent, if you're feeling more about, love being important, or if you feel like finances are more important, it's fine. I just hope that we made you think and kind of, make sure that you believe the way that you do. Again, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time. This has been your host, Crystal Jordan from Crystal with Love XO. I love you all. Have a great night.